Welcome to Culture Works, our Crown Council program to help you build and enhance your team culture. Today we're going to work on a project, the end result of which will be what we call a compelling benefit statement. It will redefine how you think about your own practice and how you communicate what you do in a way that will create compelling word of mouth. Now think about the last social gathering that you went to, maybe even when you went to the grocery store, a time when you were talking to a new acquaintance, maybe a total stranger. Now, we've all had that experience. Usually two of the most common questions in that kind of a conversation are, where are you from and what do you do? Now, if you've ever answered the what do you do question and responded with something like, I'm a dentist, I'm a dental hygienist, I work in dentistry, probably more often than not, you got a negative reaction. They told you their worst dental story ever. And that's a great way to start a relationship. Now, let me explain why that happens. All of us create categories in our minds. Those categories are designed to streamline our existence. They help us save time. You have a category in your mind for veterinarians, for bankers, for attorneys, for physicians, for someone in the military. In other words, every professional category you have uniquely defined and categorized because you think you've got it figured out. So that when someone says, I'm a veterinarian or I'm a banker, you can quickly go to that category, deposit them there, and move on because you've already got that figured out. So when someone says to you, what do you do? And you say, I'm a dentist or I work in dentistry, 99% of the population has that category already defined, and you get dismissed and pigeonholed in a pre-existing category. Today, we're going to work some magic. By creating your own compelling benefit statement, you will create your own category in people's minds. You will define a new category that they have not previously before defined. And because you create it and define it, you'll own it. Your name will be directly associated with that new category in their own mind. Now, let's talk about a couple of natural laws that have to do with this that are critically important. First is the natural law of perception. Natural law of perception says how you perceive yourself ultimately becomes how other people perceive you. Immediately, perhaps not. But how you perceive yourself then determines how you communicate and how you carry yourself and basically how you act based on how you believe and perceive what you do. So, how you perceive yourself is ultimately how other people will perceive you. Now, the next natural law is what we call the natural law of the parrot. Now, what do parrots do? Parrots repeat. And so the parrot principle here basically says that how you talk about yourself ultimately becomes how other people talk about you. They just parrot on to someone else what you've already told them. So how you perceive yourself and what you say about yourself are critically important because they ultimately become how other people perceive you and how they talk about you. So let's talk about who you serve. Because in creating your compelling benefit statement, we first have to define who it is that you uniquely serve in a better way. So you're familiar with the 80-20 principle. We've talked about it for years, and basically it says that 80% of everything comes from 20% of something. In this specific instance, it says that 80% of your production every year in your practice comes from 20% of your patients. And we can look at those patients and define who they are, what makes them similar, and what overall, how we would describe them. So your first project as a team is to define your top 20% patients. What are their characteristics? Are they high fear patients? Are they cosmetic patients? Are they younger? Are they older? Are they interested in health? How would you describe your top 20% patients? The patients who you uniquely serve, who repeat, who refer, who come back. Who is it that you are uniquely designed to serve? So I'm going to give you a minute or two here to discuss as a team your top 20% patients. We've given you some examples in your handout of some things you might consider. Write down a description of your top 20% patients and then come back and we'll take the next step. Good luck.